Hello and welcome to the Magical Travel Adventure Podcast. And we are starting this podcast and we are also doing it on video. So if you check out Magical Travel Adventure on our YouTube channel, I am trying now to put all the podcasts up there also. Today, I have a very special guest coming on and I'm very excited about it. If you don't know, I have been studying and getting ready for my Alaska trip this summer. And as part of it, I got an Alaskan Destination Specialist certification for a bunch of cruise lines. I have an Alaskan Destination Specialist certification. And I'm very lucky that during all my research, I was able to find a bunch of people that actually live in the locations that I'm going to be traveling in. And I thought they would make excellent guests on my podcast. So today I have Jaimie Palmer from the Captain's Lady. It's a small boutique in Ketchikan, Alaska. And she has other businesses also. And she is going to be on again talking about some of the other businesses that she has too. As part of, you'll hear in the interview, you'll hear part of how she started if you're watching, I'm showing you the Ketchikan Candle Company. And this is one of her candles. It's a soy candle and I absolutely love it. It smells so good. And it's my first of many. She had a whole Christmas line, but I already burned through those. So this coming up is her interview, and I hope you enjoy it. Hello, and I want to welcome Jaimie Palmer to the show. Hello, Jaimie.
Hi, Lauren. Nice to see you.
Nice to see you too. So you are here today because I have asked you to talk all about Ketchikan and your shop in Ketchikan because I found you on Instagram and I love it and I can't wait to visit it this summer.
Well, thank you.
So let's tell everyone a little bit about yourself. So how about starting who you are, where you live, what you do?
So thanks for the introduction. I am Jaimie Palmer and I own the Captain's Lady Boutique, which is on Historic Creek Street in Ketchikan, Alaska, which is what is behind me. You can kind of see the outline of the downtown waterfront, which also is exactly where Disney Cruise Lines would dock their ship right out the window here, which is kind of fun. So if you are cruising on Disney, you would step off the ship and you're right downtown, which is pretty fantastic. So I am the owner of the small boutique, which is only 300 square feet. So it's tiny, and we call it the littlest boutique on the creek. Along Creek Street right now, it's got a pretty famous history of being a row of brothels and bootlegging days, so it's pretty nuts and notorious, but pretty fascinating if you read the placards on all of the old historic homes. The house that my shop is in is the oldest one on the creek in existence, and it was called the Preacher's House. So the preacher moved to the creek to clean it up and get all these wild women out of there, but he failed. And so they pushed him out. And so there's a lot of fun history around there, but now it's a shop.
Very nice. Very nice. So how did you start the Captain's Lady? What made you start it?
Yeah, so I've always wanted to have a little boutique store of my own and a little retail shop. And I started noticing around town that there weren't many businesses that were just focused on handmade or local artists and really highlighting them in a way that promoted them and helped boost up their image and sharing their story. And so that was really important to me to bring on board folks who didn't have a name out there quite yet, who weren't artists that were selling in every shop downtown. So the whole goal of opening the shop was to find new artists that maybe didn't have the courage yet to sell in shops, but needed that little, hey, come on, join me kind of person to lift them up. So that's what we did. And I saw my very first artist, Brittany Williams is her name, and she is cute as a button. She actually works at a real estate agency most of the time, but on the side, she started doing pointillism art on fishing lures. So that's the dot style. So she does dotted sea creatures on fishing lures and then turns them into earrings. And
Wow.
now, so she was so tickled because she just posted her earrings on Facebook. And I was like, hey, I'm opening a store. Would you like to be one of our featured artists? And from there, it just became this huge thing. And now, 6 years later, she's doing her pointillism on bear bread and chicken of the woods, like these mushrooms that grow in the forest here. It's very Alaskan stuff, but and it's just been incredible to watch her journey. So it's worked. So we're doing it, and we're looking for new artists all the time that are mostly Alaskan folks, male, female, whatever. And then we have some artisans who are from the lower 48 in Canada too.
That's nice. So maybe you can explain to everyone what Creek Street is like in Ketchikan so that they know when they get off the cruise ships what it would look like and why it's so wonderful.
Yeah, so I touched on the history side of it a little bit, but it's also Creek Street is built up along Fish Creek, which actually the whole town built up around this creek because native cultures used to come here for fishing and tanning meats. And during the summer months, it was the place to be because the fish run would come straight up this creek. And so if you're here in, I think now the fish run seems like it comes in August more so, and mid-August to the end, mid-September. Mid-September, it starts to smell terrible. The beginning of August is really cool because you can start seeing the fish coming through, and you look down and you just see all the fish across, and it's just these little gray bodies swimming up the creek, and you can watch the whole process. So from where they're coming up the creek, you can follow along what's called Married Man's Trail, which goes back to the prostitution days. And, and so you can follow the fish all the way up to basically the spawning grounds, which is pretty neat. So if you want to be adventurous and walk that entire path, you can. If you want to just get a little peek over at Creek Street, you could do that too. So if you start on the Red Bridge side, which is where my shop is, from the Berth One cruise ship, all you do is you walk straight back towards the mountain as far as you can walk, which is about 3 blocks max, and look at the Red Bridge and then start the little trail. And it's just these cute little shops, very different in nature. There's one that sells all Native Alaskan art. So everything in there is made by an indigenous person. There's Ray Troll has a famous shop on Creek Street called Soho Coho, and he has really neat designs. He's a professor of ichthyology and rocks, and he's so neat. So his store is worth a visit for sure. That's called Soho Coho, and they have a website also. So I love to promote him. And he's on our buses. So if you start to see his art around town quite often if you visit. But then as you come around that side of the creek, it brings you out to Mission Street. And that starts, we have Parnassus, which is our bookstore. It's a really cute local bookstore there. And then along that row, it's more locally owned shops. So Crazy Wolf Studios is another all Native Alaskan shop, and then on and on and on, all the way back down to the docks and where your ship is. So it's just this nice little loop that you can walk and see also 2 or 3 totem poles along that route too. So it's really special.
It is. It's in like everything that you see about Ketchikan. It's always highlighted and shown. So it's very interesting to see what's offered there.
Mm-hmm.
So I know that you specifically sell something in the store also, and you started like another side company because I have it right here next to me.
I love that so much. Yeah. So the candle company. So I own the Captain's Lady, but through the pandemic, we were starting to freak out, of course, because cruise ship tourism was gone. And when March 2020 came and that announcement that we weren't going to see ships, my husband and I were just like, what are we going to do? You know, we don't want to give up on our shop. We had employees who relied on us that, you know, needed to pay for their bills and make sure they could eat. So we felt some pressure, and we wanted to do right by them and make sure their families were okay too. So we decided, like crazy people, to start another business, and and so we started the Ketchikan Candle Company. And so we make 100% soy scented candles, and all of the scents are clean and natural burning. They're phthalate free, non-toxic.
And they're very, like, you can smell them. They have a very good scent, and it's perfect. I love
Thank
this
you.
one.
It's so funny because sometimes soy candles get a bad reputation, right? Because
Yeah.
whenever they harden after you burn them, they can look a little ugly and bumpy, but that's because they're natural. Like the junk candles that have all the toxic stuff in them. Oh yeah, they're going to come across perfectly white and crystal beautiful color, but come on.
Yeah.
So ours don't look as gorgeous whenever they're just in their hard state, but that's a good thing for us to think about, wrapping our minds around, because it means that there's not all that junk in it that makes it look perfect and pristine. So, but the candle company, not only was it born to save our shop and make sure we could pay rent and keep our employees, but also with the loss of cruise ship revenue coming through Southeast Alaska, it also meant that the generosity of normally booming businesses wasn't there anymore. It couldn't be, because they were all in survival mode. So our nonprofits and a lot of these area, all the nonprofits really were freaking out too, because they're used to relying on those donations, which are usually huge. And so each one of our candles, we built in $1.50 that goes to a nonprofit. So the Ketchikan candle that you're burning actually supports our local theater group that's called First City Players. And through the pandemic, they were basically shut down, and most of their revenue is from ticket sales. And so they weren't allowed to have people gathering in the theaters, and so they were pretty much stuck. But I chose them as one of our folks that we worked with because they tried so hard, and they actually came up with these really cool ideas, like around our local lake. There's a lake called Ward Lake here. They did a theater walk outside. And so they had different acts staged all around the lake. And so people were led in groups of about 20 and spread out, and you'd get to the act, they'd perform, and then you walked on. And it was awesome. And then they figured out a couple of other outdoor things they could do despite the rain or the snow, and they tried. And so since they were trying, I was like, let's give to them. And then we give back to the local domestic violence shelter and the local homeless shelter. And then my husband is a captain, which is where our store name came from, the Captain's Lady. He's a tugboat captain. And so we have a candle called the Captain that we sell at our store, where $1.50 from each sale of that goes to our local high school maritime program. And so that way we're fostering these kids to come up through the maritime program, and hopefully, they'll be out in the world as deckhands and then captains and feel encouraged to do that. So it's good.
That's a very nice story that, it definitely seems like in Ketchikan that you guys are a community and everyone's trying to help each other out all the time.
Oh yeah, absolutely. Yeah. It's definitely, since we're all on islands throughout Southeast Alaska, everybody lends a hand. If something happens, everybody swoops in right away to fix it, So we had like a roof flew off at somebody's trailer home on the north end of the island, and people were out there and had it replaced the next day.
Wow.
It's pretty amazing. Like somebody needs food, if somebody gets medevaced south, because our hospital here is good, but it's tiny, so if anything major happens, we have to get flown to Seattle or to Anchorage for surgeries or any extensive medical care. It's pretty wild living here.
Yes. And Jaimie is going to be on some other shows because she's a entrepreneur of many hats. So we are going to have her on again for some other things. But before you leave, we want to talk about, I know people have lots of questions about Alaska living, Alaska in general, and Ketchikan. So every time you come on, I'll ask you these questions. So if you can't think of just one, you can always hold it for next time or do a few each time. So what is the one place that you recommend in Alaska that people go or try?
Oh my gosh. So that's a tricky one.
I'll let you pick two or three if you can't pick one.
So, so in Southeast, especially cruise ship travelers, I would say go to Tracy Arm Fjord. Anybody who is definitely visiting on cruise ships, make sure to book that early and first, because that tour will sell out every time. Because basically what happens is the cruise ship goes to the mouth of the arm, but they don't go as far back as maybe the itinerary planning looks like it might whenever you first look at that day on your ship plans. They won't get as back as close as maybe they could, but our boat will actually, or the boats will come in and go alongside and take people right up to this beautiful glacier, where there's also these fjords that are coming down with beautiful emerald green trees and then massive waterfalls that look like they're coming down from the heavens. And the water is glacial silt. So it's just that milky blue that's just so hard to describe. You just have to see it. And then your pictures will never look like what it does with your eyeballs, you know? So it's just so worth it. And it's just magical. If you do that one with Allen Marine Tours, then we also make glacieritas on board. So you can have a margarita that's the same color as the glacier. And it's just kind of fun.
That is really fun.
And we pull ice out of the water to make the margaritas.
That's so cool.
Yeah. Yep. So Tracy Arm for sure.
Okay. What is one myth you would like to debunk about Alaska?
Oh boy, everybody thinks that the downtown shops are owned by the cruise industry, which is crazy. Like so in every port community where ships go, you'll see jewelry stores, right? Like it's for whatever reason, they follow the ships, which people must buy big diamonds on these vacations. I don't know, but there's, that's a misconception. They think that those are owned by them just because they found their niche and they operate in these port communities. I mean, it's pretty brilliant. You know, the people come to you if you can afford to operate in Puerto Rico and Alaska. Heck yeah, get it, entrepreneur, you know. But there are a couple that have contracts with the cruise lines, you know, like Effie Jewelry. Effie is one that I know has had commissions or places on the ships where they've gotten contracts. We also have an Effie jeweler downtown here in Ketchikan. It's not owned by the brand Carnival or Royal or any of them. It's still their own independent thing. They just happen to be smart and savvy and got on board. So good on them. But for our communities, they also still pay sales tax and rent tax, and they call the plumber and they go to the grocery store. And so we love them, you know, and I know some folks, it's kind of funny. That's a battle here sometimes too, with people like, oh, the jewelry stores, but they definitely contribute a lot to our local economy, and they're not owned by the cruise ships.
That's a good one. That is a good one, because people think that they see it, you know, if they go on a Caribbean cruise and then they come up here. So that is good to know. Yes.
Yeah. I tell you what, I'd love to have my candles on a cruise ship, and they won't own it, but I would love to have them on there. So if they start their little Alaskan market, you know, on board, then I'll be pushing to find them on there, you know, but
yeah, that would be so great, having like local things on for sale on the cruise ship.
Yeah.
Yeah.
All right.
And what's one recommendation you have for someone visiting Alaska? It could be like bring something or.
Yeah, definitely layers always, because the weather over here is so crazy. It's kind of like that movie or the book, Cloudy with a Chance of Meatballs. You know, you never know what it's going to do. Every minute's crazy. Like right now outside, the sun is shining, but down the way, I can see other mountains where there's definitely rain happening. Usually every day in Southeast, especially Ketchikan, it rains every day in some way, whether it's just a little mist and you don't even really feel it, but you feel the moisture a little bit, or it's blowing sideways and you feel like you're walking in a hurricane, but that's just it. So definitely bring some foul weather gear, rain gear, especially bring a rain jacket. And if you're a cold person, bring some layers. It feels to me like Southeast Alaska in the summertime really feels like football season in the South, where it's that nice, it's not hot anymore. It's this nice, cooler temperature, but it's not the cold winter temps. It's fall. It just feels like fall. So
that's good.
Yeah.
And then the last question I have for you is, what is your favorite part about living in Alaska?
I think it's the nature and the wildlife, because we're sitting here and out the window, we could look out and a humpback could be going by, or a pod of orca, bald eagles sit on the harbor all the time, just like in some places seagulls or pelicans might, we have bald eagles en masse. And the fishing, our freezer is stocked with salmon and halibut all the time. And my husband can go out and shoot a deer, and that's fine if we need meat. Yeah, it's pretty fantastic. And yeah, fresh air, wide open spaces, and everyone should come up here.
Excellent. Well, thank you so much, Jaimie. I know that you're going to be on a few times with me talking about different things with Alaska. So we want to thank you for coming on. And do you want to share your social media handles and your website for the Captain's Lady?
Sure. Yeah. So on Instagram, it's the Captain's Lady _AK. And that's where we post the most. And it also has our website listed there also in the bio. So the website is akcaptainslady.com. We couldn't use the Captain's Lady because if you type that in, there's somebody claimed that already as a medieval healer. So if you want to check it out, that's somebody else. But it's pretty interesting. But yeah, and then we're on Facebook too. So and we also have, for the Ketchikan Candle Company, has its own Instagram handle as well, but we're not as active on that since mostly we sell through our shop, the Captain's Lady.
Right. And I can say that you can buy the candles online, no problem. And that
Yeah.
it came really fast. I think it was like 5 days. I was shocked.
Yeah, that's great. Yeah, it might be a record for over here shipping.
I know. Everything must have gone perfectly in its like route.
For sure.
So, and I also have I'll have the stuff, your social media handles and the website all below in the show notes, so everyone can see that if you just want to click to go check it out. And we want to thank you, Jaimie, for coming on.
Okay. Thanks, Lauren. I'll see you soon.
I hope you all enjoyed Jaimie's interview. She is a wealth of knowledge, and actually living in Ketchikan really helps to understand what it's like when you visit Ketchikan. It's a wonderful place to visit, and in this year I will be highlighting the Alaska when I go, the different parts that I go to. So you will definitely see me at the Captain's Lady. I already talked to Jaimie that I have to like segment out my money for each day, because I'll be done in the first day when I get to Ketchikan going to her store. So you can also shop online. All the information for Jaimie's information is below, so you can click it either in the show notes of the podcast or on the YouTube channel if you're watching. So I hope you enjoy that show, and I hope you'll join us for another show and when Jaimie comes back to continue talking about other options to do when you're in Alaska. So I hope you all have a great week, and we'll talk to you next time on the Magical Travel Adventure podcast. Bye.